It's Thursday. We're back again. Big match away days preview. Come on, let's go.
I get those goosebumps every time you come around, yeah. You ease my mind, you make everything feel fine. Worry about those comments, I'm way too numb, yeah. It's way too dumb, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time. I need the Heimlich, throw that to the side, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time, yeah. When you're not around, when you throw that to the side, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time, yeah. 713, could've 21, yeah, I'm riding. Why they on me? Why they on me? I'm flying, sipping low key. I'm sipping low key and flying. I get those goosebumps every time. I'm around, yeah. You ease my mind, you make everything feel fine. Worry about those comments, I'm way too numb, yeah. It's way too dumb, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time. I need the Heimlich, throw that.
Back again. Welcome all on a Thursday evening to Loaded Mag NUFC as we are here for another away days big match preview. And welcome all in the chat. Welcome all that are watching. And of course, the main man, Mr. Chris Hall. How you doing, fella?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. Just got my vape ready there. I was getting it ready. But you're going to say Brandy and Blaze? I was waiting.
Brandy and Blaze back in business. We are here, and cheers. Take a little sip of that, and that's gone down a treat. Busy day for both of us, and we get to talk about all things Newcastle United. And look, it'll be rude not to just get your thoughts after sort of 24, 40 hours after the old FA Cup tie. The reason why I'm laughing is because of our reactions to winning the shootout, to then our reactions to realising the draw that comes 24 hours later. We get the win against Blackburn, albeit by penalties, and then we draw Man City at the Etihad. So what are your thoughts about that, Chris?
You know what? I'm just looking for the picture that I sent. A report come up on Sky Sports today about Paul Pogba. And it said Paul Pogba says he is sad, shocked, and heartbroken after being given a 4-year ban for doping offence. And I said that was me when the FA Cup draw was made. I was sad, shocked, and heartbroken. I can't lie, mate. You know what? I suppose if I'm thinking positively about it, you've got to beat the best, to get to the final. It's not going to be easy. And you're going to have to face them sooner or later. It was funny because when obviously the balls were announced, I think Daz told us in the morning, I said to the lads on my WhatsApp group, I said, you know what? I just want to avoid Man City at all costs. Just don't give me Man City and anyone else I'm happy with. And you'll have seen, Pete, and many other people watching will have seen on Twitter a few weeks ago, I stuck my chest out and I was like, bring Liverpool on, let's have Liverpool. And then I had to kind of defend my stance then because my mates were going, oh, you want Liverpool at Anfield? And I was like, no. I said, I want a home draw. I want to play St. James's. They were like, you didn't say that. I was like, no. I said, but I'm not going to ask to go to Anfield. I said, I want a home tie. And so I kind of resigned myself on the day to go, and do you know what? The dream would be for me, Liverpool at home, but, a Coventry at home, a Wolves at home, just anybody at home. And then when the draw got made and it was just said City away, I was just like, it was literally like someone above was just laughing at us because that is the worst draw that anyone could have. So, yeah, I wouldn't say I'm confident because I think that'd be a lie. But it is what it is, and let's hope Man City don't necessarily take the cup too seriously, and maybe they'll field a weaker team, and then maybe we might want it a bit more than them on the day. That's the only thing I'm kind of, giving myself a little bit of hope for.
Yeah, and that's, I think, the key word, Chris. I agree with everything you said, and it's that key word, it's hope. Drawing the Man City Etihad is the worst possible FA Cup draw you could ask for in that. And I was a little bit more sheepish than you and Daz. I said, give me Leicester, give me Coventry. Like I don't care. Like I just want those. You don't care how you get to Wembley You just want to get there, even if it's the easiest draw. But yeah, look, it's the worst possible one. It just goes to show, like, everyone's been putting them on social media for everybody to see. Man City at home. Then you get Man United at Old Trafford. Then you get Chelsea at Stamford Bridge. That's just the Carabao Cup. Then you get in the FA Cup, you get the Mackhams. Then you get another away tie, Fulham. And then it's just never ending. You get Blackburn away and you think, oh, maybe they're being friendly on us. They're being kind on us. Blackburn away, Championship team. We struggle past them. Then we get given the Etihad. And that's not even going into the Champions League, getting a group of death. Like, it's just... Lots of fans have been angry about it. Lots of fans have been saying that it's fixed, that it's planned. Everyone's saying, let me... Everyone needs to have a hold of those balls because one's definitely heavier than the other. There's been all sorts of conspiracies about it, but it just we haven't had the rub of the green this season with injuries or cup draws. So it's been a bit of a nightmare. But look, we rock on, we roll on, and we'll have to keep our fingers crossed that Haaland and co are not at the races on that day, that's for sure. But look, football, Premier League football is back. We're back up and running, and we're going to get into it now, very much so, because the man is here in the green room, and it's always a pleasure to have him on. And look, you know about away days. This is what we do. We get the opposition view, and it's an absolute pleasure to get on from Wolves Fancast. The main man, Little Dan. Let's get him on. How you doing, fella?
Evening, guys. Everyone at Louded Mag, nice to be back.
Good man. Great to have you on, mate. And you're sporting one of Chris's favourites there, right? The t-shirt, ain't Nori.
Yeah, I remember last time he came on, Chris was very enthusiastic about Ryan. He gets better and better. Probably been his breakout season this year. He seemed to have got rid of the fitness queries we had over him in previous seasons. And he's one of the best left backs in the division for me. He'll be another one like Pedro Neto that will be having a lot of suitors after him in the summer.
Definitely. But look, let's get talking about Wolves, because obviously in the last game when we played you guys, 2-2 draw at Molineux, tight game. You guys could have nicked it. We had opportunities that we didn't take to nick it, as did you. Fair result in the last one. Would you say, or were you annoyed that you didn't get the win?
Probably fair. For the draw is probably a fair result over the 90 minutes. I think we maybe have had the better chances. I still think your penalty was rather dubious, but you have your own opinions on that. We don't seem to get many decisions against Newcastle in recent years, I found, because I'm still a bit aggrieved that Nick Pope wasn't sent off when he hacked down Jimenez last season at your place.
I remember it. And I remember at the time I was kind of like, and the reaction, no, it's not a penalty, it's not. But yeah, maybe a year on. I think
it's one of them, Pete. Whereas, like, if it's against your team, you're adamant that it's a pen. But when it's against you, I'm like, oh, that would be soft if that was given. But if you're gonna be like true and pure to the game, it was a penalty and possibly a red.
Yeah, definitely. Well, yeah, I think that's more than fair for sure. And we to be fair, you guys were well in the game at St James's Park last season, and it was only an inspired sub by Miguel Almiron. When he came on, he ended up winning the game for us. It was 2-1. They're always close games, though, Dan. They're always close games when we play each other. There's never really one team that kind of runs away with it and has a real kind of like massive result. Certainly in recent years. Are you, in your mind, are you kind of, without saying what your result was going to be or your prediction, are you expecting it to be a tighter game? And the reason why I say that is because, and I'll get it up now, it is very tight in and around the top end of the table. And I'll put it up here, and we're sitting right next to each other in 10th and 9th. There are not many points between 10th and 7th place, that all-important 7th place that at this moment in time will secure European football. just a measly couple of points. Like, are you expecting a tight game, in your opinion, on Saturday?
Yeah, I think you've already sort of alluded to it, that we've had a lot of draws, haven't we, over these fixtures home and away over the last, since Wolves got back into the Premier League. Both hard-working teams, both very well drilled in the way that they set up and actually play their football. Last night, obviously, you played Blackburn on Tuesday night, was it? I thought the FA Cup games was huge games for both sides, but I still think both of us have got the capacity to catch Man United in 6. So Saturday's a huge game for me, possibly even bigger than what last night was, because I genuinely believe we can catch Man United. I think that's more possible than Wolves winning the FA Cup. I genuinely believe, on the basis of how Man United are performing. I still don't think they're overly great. We rolled over for them in the first half, and we played them recently, lost deep into injury time after we pulled it back to 3-3. I genuinely believe Man United are there to be caught, and Saturday, I think whoever wins that game could possibly go on to take over United in that 6th, 7th league table position.
It's an interesting one, actually. Until you mention it, I kind of cancelled Man United out, and because obviously they're a number of points away, but they play Man City at the weekend. If I'm right in thinking, and I think everyone's expecting them to get beat off the back of that. But Chris, interesting what Little Dan said actually with regards to that. Are you of the mindset that we can catch Man United, or did you have them out of the race? And kind of how would you think it's looking between Wolves and Newcastle?
Do you know what? To answer the first part of the question, Pete, like I agree with Little Dan. I think I still do feel like some of those European spots are up for grabs. I mean, it's easy for us to look at, respectively, Wolves 10th, Wolves 9th, us 10th, and you go, bloody hell, it's a long way up, looking up. But there's 12 games to go, so we're talking 36 points to play for there. And it's a lot of points. And as you rightly say, Pete, Man United have got Man City at the weekends, and Man United are going to drop points, as are Brighton, as are West Ham. I mean, I'm hoping Tottenham drop a lot of points, although I think they've probably got a bit more squad depth to be able to, deal with any issues. But I still do think there is an opportunity there for ourselves and Wolves, and possibly Chelsea, to try and turn things around. I mean, Chelsea have been shocking again this season, and considering the squad they've got, they should be doing better. But it's an opportunity for all of us, and I suppose the likes of Man United, Brighton, etc., will look at this and go, do you know what, we've got the advantage. We need to try and keep up with it. But if ourselves and Wolves can put a run of games together, you win 3 or 4 on the bounce, you'll be in those positions, because I don't see Man United or Brighton putting that kind of run together personally.
I'm not sure what your guys' remaining home fixtures are like, Pete. We've only got Arsenal and West Ham in the top half left to play at home this season. I think if we can get good points in our home fixtures, we're right in the mix. We are.
Well, interestingly, and to be fair, I've been banging on about it since January, is that in terms of teams left to play in the top half of the table, we've already played Liverpool twice, Man City twice, Arsenal twice, Villa twice. So that's your top 4 we've already played twice, so we don't need to play them for the rest of the season. Tottenham have got to come to St. James's. Brighton have got to come to St. James's. West Ham have got to come to St. James's, as do Wolves, and we go to Chelsea. So that's your top 11. Like that's that's who we've still got left to play. So, actual fact, there's a number of those teams in the bottom half that we've still got to play. We've got Sheffield United that need to come to St. James's Park. We go to Burnley. We've got we've got to go to Brentford. We've got Everton that come to St. James's Park. We've got to go to Palace, and we've got to go to Fulham. So you look at those fixtures; they're not bad fixtures. We've not got any tough games that you would think. And correct me if I'm wrong, Chris. We've not got any games from there that you think that actually you could almost kind of like rule out and go, you know what? Yeah, we're probably not going to win that. Let's scrap that off. Every game between now and the end of the season, you could argue that's a more than winnable game for Newcastle United. Are you the same, Chris?
No, I feel exactly the same, Pete. I think we were, you're right. We were talking about it a couple of weeks ago, and we were saying that the difficult, hard, horrible one to get out the way was Arsenal at the Emirates, which we did, and it wasn't very pretty. But now that one's out the way, you're right. You know, the other games you look at, and I'm not saying we're going to win all the games because obviously we won't. But you look at them and you think maybe there's one or two potentially half tricky ones, but the rest, you know, if you were doing like a points tally of it, I think you could feasibly say, well, all right, law of averages. Let's say we lose 2, possibly 3. We'll draw a couple, but the rest we could win. And I mean, how many points would that be? Say, I don't know. Say that's like 20, 22, 25 points, something like that. That all of a sudden you add that to our total, and we're pushing the 60 mark. And then if you're pushing the 60 mark, you're going to be in or around top 7, top 8. So for me, and again, like I said before, it's about the other clubs maintaining that and the other clubs' fixtures. So to hear Little Dan say that, and to answer the second part of your question, it sounds like Wolves are going to be able to put a decent one together as well. So there's certainly opportunities, you know, for the table to still change. Do either of us really want to be where we are right now? Probably not. And what really frustrates me is we look at the likes of West Ham, Brighton, Man United, and all season, Little Dan, you've probably been the same, saying like, oh, they've had a really inconsistent season. They've not had a good season. You know, they've been up and down, yet we find ourselves behind them, which is really frustrating. And it kind of highlights, you know, the problems or issues that we've had. Because I rate Wolves. I think Wolves are a really good side. And Gary O'Neill's really shocked me. Like, you know, he's done really, really well. And, you know, Dan knows I'm a big fan of his of the player on his T-shirt. And they've got some good players. So, like, you know, Wolves can certainly put a run together as well. So I think it could actually be ourselves and Wolves who are really pushing, you know, for that 6th, 7th spot.
Yeah. Dan, you're sitting 9th in the table, 38 points, well in with a chat for European football, as you talked about. I couldn't think of anything better than Newcastle and Wolves finishing 6th and 7th in the table potentially by the end of the season, and we're kicking out the likes of Man United, the likes of West Ham and Chelsea. That would be ideal for me, and that would show the progression of the Premier League. Just like it did last season when we finished 4th. Villa were in there, Brighton were in there, kicked out the likes of Tottenham and Chelsea. I'd love to see that again. But were you expecting to be where you are right now and in with a shout of European football, you know, earlier on in the season? Because you did have some up and down moments. Obviously, Gary O'Neill came in. There were some like kind of good moments, some bad moments in games. And then all of a sudden you've put on this real kind of consistent form. Were you, Dan, sort of expecting this at any point in the season? And as an additional, when did it start to change where that maybe, if you didn't expect it, where that confidence started to come from?
I know I've got like an angelic, handsome face, but I'd be absolutely lying to you if I thought this was going to be a successful season, guys. We all knew the sort of strife that we had going into the first game of the season. Julian Lopetegui left like 4 days before the season. Gary O'Neill himself has admitted in interviews that even he would have found himself underwhelming as an appointment as a Wolves fan. We were all in that mindset. We were concerned where the club was going. We were under the impression that the owners had sort of were looking for a sale that finished pumping money in. But I think similar to when Eddie Howe took over from Steve Bruce, he's just built a bond within this group of players that the fans are completely now back on side. He's got us so well drilled in the way that we play football now. Defensively, I think we're in the top 3, I think, of actually defending our 18-yard box. If you look at the stats, Wolves of old and under sort of new now when we had that back 5 and, you know, 5 at the back pace and attack. That's pretty much where we're at again now. Obviously, Pedro Neto's fully fit again now, starting to play well. But Gary O'Neill's somehow managed to raise the levels of certain players that we didn't know they had that levels. Matheus Cunha last season came for like £40 million. He's really starting to prove that value to us now. He's a massive blow for us now. He's not due back from injury until them talking possibly the end of May. Hwang Hee-chan possibly could be out on Saturday after appearing to tweak his hamstring in the second half on last night's game against Brighton. So we are at the bare bones. The club have let Gary O'Neill down a little bit in the January transfer window, but the January transfer window is such a hard window to bring players in, especially when everyone in the world would love a number 9. But who's giving up a number 9 in January? It's such a tough window to bring players in, and that's what Gary O'Neill's found. Hopefully, in the summer, he's justified a decent war chest. I think whatever Pedro Neto gets sold for, he'll get hopefully a bulk of that transfer fee. But yeah, Gary O'Neill's been serving out humble pie for months now, and hopefully he gets a good backing in the summer from the club.
We're in a similar position, Chris, where we were expecting to be backed as well, and it never happened. And it's interesting that that Dan's saying that he expects a big sum of money to be spent on rebuilding the club. Like, we're in exactly the same position, mate, aren't we? In terms of rebuilding, but you talked about Wolves, Dan. From your perspective, what do you make of Newcastle United this season? Obviously we know the injuries and stuff have kicked in, but is this what you expected us to be? The position that we are, where we're fighting right now? What are you expecting of Newcastle United between now and the end of the season?
I'm not going to say I thought you were going to be as low as 10th, is it, at the moment? There's still plenty of games. You can't be judged on 10th at the moment. But I think I did predict to you at the start of the season, Pete, that I thought you was going to finish, I think it was 6th or 7th, I actually predicted. But I did say I thought you'd get to the quarterfinals of the Champions League, so I've got that completely wrong. I genuinely thought you didn't have the squad to properly compete at both of those levels this season.
Yeah.
And I think the fact that I predicted you to go to the quarterfinals of the Champions League has probably gone the other way in the league. You have been massively hindered by injuries this season. I saw the stats today that I think you're top of the table for the amount of hours that your players have missed across the season so far. So that's the difficulty that we're all playing against with the likes of Man City, Liverpool, the amount of money that they pumped into their clubs. You look at their benches and stuff. You look at Liverpool's kids that they beat Southampton with last night. The majority of those kids are going to go on to play for decent Premier League sides if they don't make the Liverpool grade full time. That's what we compete with. I think you'll be okay. I think you can still push for 5th to 8th, hopefully similar to us. But you look at the teams above us and around us. I think Brighton and West Ham, they've got Europa League to start with again soon. So hopefully that hinders their league ability. Chelsea, I'm just complete Jekyll and Hyde. You never know what you're going to get with Chelsea. But I still think out of all the teams I've mentioned, I think Man United are there for the taking.
Yeah, it's interesting, for sure. Chris, I really hadn't thought of that about Man United. But I think they've got a run coming up where they've got some really difficult fixtures there. And Daz has always mentioned that he wants to finish above Man United this season, which is the absolute that's the aim, isn't it? Because if you're finishing it above them, that you're likely to get European football. Any players that have stood out for you, Chris, from what the bits that you've seen from Wolves? Who are you kind of worried about going into the game on Saturday? There might be one or two obvious names, but is there who's kind of at the forefront of your mind right now?
Well, touching on what Little Dan said before, I really like Hwang Hee-chan, and when I saw that he'd limped off yesterday, I'm not going to lie, I was quite pleased about that, because Hwang Hee-chan, he's one of those industrious type players, isn't he? I'm not saying he's the most talented in the world, but he puts a shift in. He puts a shift in, and technically he's actually pretty decent. So I think he's been a good signing for Wolves. Wolves have got loads of good players. I like Ait Nouri, as you know. I think Max Kilman's decent. I like Craig Dawson, even though Craig Dawson feels like he's been playing since 1992. He just keeps going and going. But when you look at his stats and when you see how he compares to other players, he's a good, solid player. He really is. Cunha's really picked up this season, as Dan mentioned, and really the one that I've left to last, the one that I'm really worried about is Pedro Neto. He's the game changer, isn't he? He's the stellar player. And I know that we've spoke about this a few times when Liverpool came in and bought Diogo Jota. People were surprised because they thought they were going to go for Pedro Neto. I mean, we won't talk about Diogo Jota, but Pedro Neto is a player who worries me because For me, he should be playing for the top 6, even top 4 sides. He's that good, and that's obviously no disrespect to Wolves whatsoever. But I think he's just a player who's got magic in his feet, and I think he's a real game changer. And that's probably why Wolves, the rumours that have come out that I've seen recently, Dan, are that Wolves are going to be commanding at least 80, if not 100 million for Pedro Neto in the summer, and I do understand why, because he's such a good player. So if he starts on the weekend, which I'm assuming he will, he'll be the one that I'm really worried about, because, as I say, I rate him really highly. I think he's a really good player.
Talk to us then, little Dan. Talk to us about. Let's keep on the conversation on Pedro Neto, because it seems like every man and his dog are after him. From what you read in the news. How good is he? You get to see him every week. You get to watch him play every single week. How good is he? What's his ceiling? And what makes him stand out and be such an effective player for Wolves, certainly under Gary O'Neill, since he's taken over the club?
I think the core players, like Pedro Neto, chair tappers, isn't it? Because as soon as they get the ball, you can hear the chairs hit the back of the seats. He's literally that player. It gets you off your seats when you've got your backs against the wall. You've got Pedro Neto on the counter attack. I don't care who you are defensively. Defenders don't want to come up against a player like Neto due to how fast it purely his acceleration, how quick he can get away from a player. He's very, very left-footed, too much for my liking. He had a big chance against Brighton last night. If he would have swung his right foot, I think he would have went 2-0 up, and he wants to get back onto his left foot. But that's his second biggest problem is he's very left-footed. Obviously, everyone's aware of his injury problems that he's had in the past. Hopefully, he's behind that now. I think Chris has sort of already said it. If he hadn't have had those injuries, he wouldn't be at Wolves now. He'd already be playing for a top 4 side or a top European side. He is that special. Chris mentioned Craig Dawson a minute ago. Since Craig Dawson and Mario Lemina came in last January, that's provided the spine that we were lacking in the previous 2 years under Bruno Lage and Lopetegui and Nuno. Sorry. We've got a really strong spine now. Obviously, Hwang Hee-chan, like Chris mentioned, very, very industrious. You can't really say much more than he puts a proper shift in. Technically, he isn't the best. I think he's technically underrated, but his effort and his guile is what earns him a lot of his chances, and his conversion rate this season, I think it's in the top 5, I think, for actual shots to conversion rate. So hopefully he'll be fit on Saturday. But the way he sort of limped off last night, I wouldn't put a lot of money on it. But he hasn't. He came back from the Asia Cup and he hasn't looked fully fit since coming back from there. He had a knock during the tournament, and then there was rumours that Jurgen Klinsmann had run the South Korean national team absolutely ragged. So there is concerns about what condition he is. I think Heung-min Son for Spurs hasn't looked great since coming back from that tournament.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see what season is in store for Chan from here.
Yeah, no, there's definitely some talented players in there, and I think Wolves are definitely being underrated right now. People are not talking about them as well as they should be, because, like you said, they've put some really good results together recently, and they look a really, really strong side. And it was interesting on socials as they do, when people are talking about this game in the build-up. People were saying, we'll go full strength against Blackburn, and then we'll win against Wolves because we're at home. Our home form's not great at the moment. We're not playing well, and Wolves have just gone to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium and got a win. So you guys have got your tails up right now. You guys are strong. You're looking good. That Pedro Neto run for your winning goal was just absolutely electric, and I don't think I've seen a player do that to Tottenham at their stadium this season, which really kind of made me stand up and take notice. The fact that you went there, not just went there, you didn't just hang in and nick a counter attack. You look good. You went toe to toe with them, and that's the thing.
Won more that day.
Yeah, exactly. And I didn't watch the game live, but I was hearing the commentary on there, and people reporting on the game, and you guys went toe to toe with them. This is not going to be an easy game for Newcastle United, Chris, at all. And we are certainly going to need to be at it. Now, some positive news, Chris, is that, we do have some players back. We've got, Isaac and Willock that have got minutes under the belt. Look, we'll get your thoughts on whether they'll be starting later on. We've also got Elliot Anderson back in the squad. He came on and took a really good penalty against Blackburn, added 10 minutes or so. He's going to be really, really useful. We're starting to get players back now, and that's going to be a massive, massive positive. But look, just in general, Chris, like what are your thoughts going into this game in terms of, coming up against Wolves, because it's such a massive game. I said it to you guys on Tuesday. We've got a really, really difficult run of games coming up. What, in your opinion, needs to happen to get St. James's Park up and running again in terms of being the fortress that we thought and expected it to be this season?
I think it all comes down to confidence, Pete. We spoke about that, didn't we, when we did the match day live on Tuesday against Blackburn? We just look like a team which is devoid of confidence at the moment. We're slowly getting our players back, which is what we've been crying out for. I mean, having Alexander Isak back and Elliot Anderson and Joe Willock, as you've mentioned, it's massive. But these players aren't just going to come back and all of a sudden everything just clicks in place. It's something that we will gradually see as an improvement over time. But unfortunately, that's something we and Eddie Howe don't really have, and that's time. Like we've really struggled, and we've only got 12 games after the season, and we've got to click back into place if we want to finish this season successfully. And for me, a successful season would be qualifying for Europe, given what's happened for the majority of this season, and who knows, maybe going on a cup run. We can get to that a bit later on, maybe. But yeah, for me, it's just about getting that confidence back, and what better way than doing that than really trying to put aside away at St. James's Park. If we were to win at the weekends, like emphatically, like a 3-0, 3-1, 4-0, 4-1, something like that, where everyone goes, right, Newcastle are back now. And then it's about getting that run of games where you do 2, 3, 4 on the bounce, and then all of a sudden, a little bit of momentum. Everyone gets behind the team. Everyone's getting excited. The players are going, do you know what? We look so much better now. X, Y, Z's back. And then that's when we can start, doing the rotation. We've got Harvey Barnes coming back. Alexander Isak, let's say, for example, we go 2 or 3 goals up at the weekend, fingers crossed. Having the option to be able to go, right, bring Harvey Barnes on now, right, bring Elliot Anderson on. It's having these options, and in the past we've not had that. That's me obviously thinking really positively, and I'm not suggesting that's going to happen. I hope it does, but it's going to be a difficult game against Wolves, and you rightly say, a fantastic result for them against Tottenham, and that just shows what we're up against. So we're going to have to be not overconfident. We're just going to have to try and just get that confidence back. It was a poor performance against Blackburn midweek, and I think that they owe those travelling fans a good performance at St. James's Park. And like I say, all we need to do is just get a run of games together, get some wins, build the confidence, and then all of a sudden, well, you know what momentum can bring. If you win 2 or 3 on the bounce, all of a sudden everyone's going, can we catch Man United? Can we catch Tottenham? Because if we went on a silly run like Liverpool did last season when they nearly caught us to 4th, if we win, if we put a run of games together where, like, out of 9 games, we win 7, draw 1, lose 1, we're going to be right up there, because the other teams around us are going to have to do similar to keep up with us and also keep away from us. So it's up to us. We've got the fixtures there, Pete. You've already said it. There's no excuse when you look at those fixtures that we can't put that one together. Like, we haven't even got it where in 2 or 3 games you've got another horrible fixture where you go, oh, that's going to break the momentum up. Feasibly, we could go on an unbeaten run here, but it's whether or not we can do that.
Yeah. And there's a few talking about it in the chat. Our defensive record isn't great. Yeah. It's really not strong at the moment. We are conceding goals, even when winning games and looking comfortable. Like, we looked very, very comfortable after scoring against Blackburn, and we still managed to concede an equaliser just out of nothing. And it's something we're definitely going to need to be mindful of. But everyone, thank you in the chat for your likes and your subscribes to the channel. Thank you for all your support. And if you haven't already and you're coming onto the chat now, make sure you click that like and show your support for Loaded Mag NUFC. And of course, whilst you're there, give a follow to Wolves Fancast and Dan as well. His tag is in the description down there, so make sure you give them the support as well from a Wolves perspective. Dan, I wanted to get your lineup, wanted to get your team. How, in your opinion, obviously you talked about one or two players maybe sort of limping off against Brighton, maybe not being ready for the game at the weekend. How do you think you're going to set up? Just from what you've seen from the game on Wednesday night.
I'm loving this new tactical pad you've brought in. This is new since the last came on. That's tidy. That is.
It's been a while since you've been on, Dan. That's the
Yeah.
thing. Like we missed. I think we got you last season. We missed it for the first round, but we got you back. And yeah, we always like to change it up now and again.
Yeah, I think it all depends on whether Wang Chan's available. I think the way we played against Brighton last night was similar to sort of a 5-3-2 formation, but he had Mario Lemina playing this like mad hybrid right winger role last night, which isn't what you'd normally expect from Lemina. Put us ahead against Brighton last night. He's so key to the way that we play. I think if Mario Lemina has a good game, we tend to play well as a team. João Gomez in midfield, I think he's another Wolves player who might go for big money in a couple of seasons. I think he's only 21 Brazilian. He's proper up there for defensive midfielders. So, I mean, like, obviously in goal will be Jose Sarr.
Yeah.
Back five, start with the right back will be Nelson Semedo, number 22.
Okay.
Yeah, three centre-halves from the right, Max Kilman captain, Craig Dawson playing the sort of sweeper role with left centre-half, Toti Gomez, and our left wing back, who is some sort of, similar to Lemina, really, some sort of mad hybrid left wingers all over the pitch, can do it all. Ryan Aït-Nouri.
Okay.
These guys are so well drilled in that the way that they're set up. Defend that 18-yard box heroically. Craig Dawson, Max Kilman's the captain, but the organisation skills that Craig Dawson has, Chris mentioned it earlier, he seems like he's been going forever. That going forever has led to the experience and knowing what to do and when not to do it. And that allows Totti and Max Kilman to bring us out the defence quite efficiently, which we've found this season. So I'm going to go with a midfield three of João Gomez, Mario Lemina, and Tommy Doyle.
And Tommy Doyle. Tommy Doyle's been a good signing for you this season.
We've absolutely had Man City's pants down with selling Matheus Nunes for massive money and getting Tommy Doyle. I think it's a long deal with an option to buy for a fee of around £5 million. It could be one of the most biggest bargains we've had. We signed João Moutinho for £5 million a few years ago, probably on a different wage scale to what Tommy Doyle is, but pound for pound could be one of our best signings. He's an absolutely quality player. Obviously come through the Man City academy. I think both his granddads were like Man City Cup winners, so he's got pedigree.
Yeah.
And then I think if I'm going to go with two up front, it's going to be probably Pedro Neto, and I'm going to say Sarabia, but he may go with Bellegarde. Let's go with Bellegarde.
Okay, where's Bellegarde? I did have him somewhere, I think. I think I've got to add him in.
I think he might be 24.
Yeah, I'll put
Sarabia in. Put Sarabia in.
Plenty of okay, we'll go on. We'll put Sarabia in.
Yeah,
I'll add him in. I'll add him in later on. Let me do that in a second. Okay, so could well be Bellegarde. You've gone with Sarabia, but it could be any one of the two. That's how you're going to set up in this sort of formation. Is Lemina, Gomez, Doyle in the right places?
I'd say so, yeah. I think probably have Doyle and Gomez more of a flat two with maybe Lemina just free rolling in front of them. Yeah, I think Gary O'Neill will want to sort of try and keep us quite compact, quite narrow. You can put Cross into the box all game long, and he's going to want to back Kilman, Dawson, and Totti to be winning a lot of the aerial duels. I think we had our most clearances in the season last night. I think there's 40 clearances during the 90 minutes, which shows how much we were sort of at our backs against the wall. But although Brighton were pressing for a lot of the game, I never really felt Jose Sarr was under pressure. I think they finished the game with 2 shots on target, Brighton. We've done a number on in the last 2 games, home and away. And there's so many teams who Brighton have pulverised to a degree over the last 2-3 years. That they're such an efficient team, the way they move the ball around and play through the lines. So quite happy with how we're playing defensively at the moment. And if we can draw you on, one of my Newcastle friends keeps telling me that Kieran Trippier is one of your weakest links defensively. If you've got Pedro Neto running against him on Saturday, well, you know how that ends up, guys.
Yeah. Hopefully Neto's on our left, but then I'm saying hopefully, but it all depends on what team.
He's going to rhyme. It's going to rhyme because obviously when we break on the transition, it's basically Tommy Doyle or Gomez or Lamina. It's them driving the ball forward, or it's Tommy Doyle launching a pass to have like Neto 1 against 2, 1 against 3.
Yeah. Interesting, very interesting. Chris, from a Newcastle perspective, what are you going for, fella?
Yeah, it's actually nice to have a few options this week, isn't it? So I might be able to keep people guessing a little bit, although I am going to stay safe. I mean, I've got my own preferred lineup, but I'm going to pick what I think Eddie Howe will pick. So I'll go with Martin Dubravka in goal, Pete.
Okay.
Right back will be Kieran Trippier.
Yeah, go. Keep going.
Centre backs will be Fabian Schär, and I think Botman will return.
Okay.
I think Sven Botman will return, particularly if we're not going to talk about that Blackburn equaliser. But if Pete, I think we nearly had a heart attack, didn't we, when Jamal Lascelles give away possession. But anyway, we won't go there. Left back. See, I think, especially because of what Dan's been saying there, and surely it's in Eddie Howe's mind. I hope. And yeah, do you know what? I will, because I think he will. But given that he's up against Pedro Neto, I think he's going to go with Tino Livramento. And I think he should, because he did for Arsenal. So I think he should do the same. And do you know what? It's important for Tino Livramento to get a run in games. Let's be honest, he's the future. So I hope we see Tino Livramento at left back. Sorry, Dan, you were going to say something.
Is Ruben Neves fit for you guys? Because I can't see him on your list.
Hey, don't start. Because I could quite easily change this man into black and white. Where is he? Where's Pedro Neto? I could quite easily go and type him in and put him in black and white.
We've already talked about it, guys. Unless you finish in top 4, not for all the Saudi money in the world, is he going to Newcastle this summer?
We would definitely want him, but yeah, I think everyone's after him at the moment. I think Newcastle United are not going to be a team that will get into a bidding war for Neto, and I think it will be a bidding war with the likes of Liverpool and Spurs and whoever in the market for him for sure. But yeah, gonna be an interesting one. Chris, midfield, what are you thinking?
Midfield, mate. I think Bruno will be holding.
Okay.
Let's hope he still remains away from that 10th yellow card.
Yeah.
It's a classic. Sorry, Chris.
Oh no, go on, mate.
Classic. Obviously, most games that are won in the midfield. I think whoever gets the better out of Bruno and Mario Lamina on Saturday takes the points for me.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, it's a good point. Good point. I didn't mention Lamina earlier either. Like he's got to be another bloody bargain signing, hasn't he? Didn't you get Mario Lamina on a free?
I think it was around like 7 or 8 million, I think, or something like 10 million euros, something really low for what he's brought to this team from like a spine point of view. And he said himself that I think he played for Fulham and Southampton and Juventus previously, that he probably wasn't as mature as he was now, and he's one of the leadership group at Wolves now. He's, like I said, I keep mentioning the spine. Craig Dawson, Lamina, when Cunha's been fit, those 3 players have been so instrumental to where we find ourselves on the table now.
I was absolutely shocked when Lamina went from Juventus to Southampton. I was even more shocked when he left Southampton, not because he left Southampton, I think it was to come to you, but it was the fact that they were willing to let him go. That was the big thing, because I've always thought he's been a good midfielder, but he's definitely gone on to another level since he's gone to Molineux, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Go for it, fella.
On the right of midfield, again, this is why I'm saying what I think Eddie Howe will pick. I think Eddie Howe will go with Sean Longstaff.
Yep.
And on the left of midfield, I think he'll go with Joe Willock.
Okay. Big Joe back in business.
Bit of pace. And it's exactly what we need, especially up against Joe Gomez and Tommy Doyle. This is what we need. We need legs. That's what we've desperately been crying out for, and Joe Willock provides your legs. So I think that'll be a good addition to the 11. On the left will be Anthony Gordon.
Lovely stuff.
On the right, I think, and I hope, I'm going to still stick with what I think. I think he's going to go with Jacob Murphy on the right.
Ooh, okay.
And through the middle, Alexander Isak.
Okay.
Who's just huge for us. Absolutely huge for us. I mean, some people may say that Miggy will start on the right, and maybe that's what Eddie Howe will go with. But for me, I want to see Jacob Murphy. I need to see some crosses getting pinged in with the right foot on that right wing. That's what I need to see. Alexander Isak's there. He's waiting for the ball. You don't have to keep cutting back in on the left and either playing it back. This is what we were talking about, Pete. About us sometimes being too slow in the transition. How many times do you see a natural right winger such as Jacob Murphy? Ball comes in and he just fizzes it, just gets it in the box quick, and that's what Alexander Isak feeds on. That's what we need. We don't need this slow build-up play. Miggy, I'm not here to bash Miggy, but I want to see balls in the box. That's what I want to see. So for me, I would pick Jacob Murphy, and I hope that's what Eddie Howe would pick. But I don't know about you, Pete. What do you think on that?
No, I think that's definitely a lineup I can get behind 100%. For me, Livramento has to start. For me, I think Livramento needs now a run of games in the team. And you mentioned that earlier, and I agree with you. I think he really does, particularly in the Premier League. I don't mind Burns starting against Blackburn in the FA Cup. I don't mind that, but I think Livramento should be, in my opinion, the first choice, particularly with the games that we've got coming up. And as Little Dan mentioned, the likes of Pedro Neto, he might roam off to Newcastle's right, but you want him to be tucking in and making sure that he's supporting Botman. And I think Botman will feel more supported having Livramento there because Livramento has got the pace to run in behind. That partnership wasn't great against Arsenal, but as we've already said, Arsenal were very, very good that day. They were on top form, and I just think at St. James's Park we can be a different outfit. But what we have now in there is that those three could well be crucial in terms of the pace and being able to get back and support and really do a job for the team. It's what you've said, Chris, and it's what we've been saying for weeks. We've lacked serious pace in this team, but adding Willock and Livramento in there is what I expect to happen, and I expect in the summer for that pace to be added to in this team, to be a real dynamic, pacey team, to get up and down for 90 minutes and really put teams to the sword. There'll be question marks about Longstaff for sure, because he isn't playing well. He just isn't. And people will say, well, why isn't Miley in there? I just think Eddie Howe's always going to pick Sean Longstaff first ahead of Miley. I think next season may well be a different conversation, but I think right now he's always going to go with that experienced player. And to be fair, Longstaff owes us a performance. He does. If he keeps selecting him, he owes us a performance. The front line is the front line. Isak, he had a good time, scored a great goal against Wolves last time at St. James's Park last season. I'm hoping for him to be the same. We need him up and running soon with another goal. Gordon, be interesting to see how he gets on in these areas here against Max Kilman, who is a very good defender, by the way. And Semedo's got a lot of pace. But for the points that you said, Chris, and if we remember back at St. James's Park last season against Wolves, Murphy got the nod to surprise of everyone when Miggy got dropped. And Murphy did exactly what you said, is that he got down here and just fizz balls into the box to create havoc early on. And he continued to do that all the way through. And that's what we need. We need that directness. Someone that's going to run with the ball, run at players and just whip balls in. And to cause Wolves a different type of problem. What you notice about Murphy is when he makes those runs down here, and I bring the ball into play if I can. Yeah, is that when he makes the runs down here into these areas, he doesn't whip them high. And like you said, little Dan, like your three centre backs they'll win everything in the air. They're big, tall, strong, physical centre backs. But Murphy likes to keep them low, keep them well driven, whip them in. Isak's not going to win anything in the air against these boys, but his runs and his intelligent movement could well be the difference. So I'm interested to see how that partnership kind of comes about. But yeah, I'm sure we've got one or two issues to worry about. But little Dan, just before we come away from the tactics board, in your opinion, where do Wolves normally hurt teams, and how do they normally do it? What are you expecting on Saturday at St James's Park from a Wolves perspective, mate?
I think you guys are going to completely disagree with this, but there is a lot of talk in social media that players like Bruno Guimaraes get protected quite a lot by referees for not being booked quite regularly at St James's Park. I think if João Gomez can get that level of protection from the referee on Saturday, I think he's going to be the one that surprises you. He's literally, when we signed him from Flamengo, it came with the nickname the Pitbull. He literally, I don't know how he does it. I'd question doping. He's literally, guys, that relentless. He manages to like put in 400 like leg stabs every time he wins to try to win a tackle. It'll come from all angles. And then it's all about Wolves in the counter. Then if we can get Pablo Sarabia on the ball, on set pieces and in pockets of space in your final third, it's then finding Pedro Neto. We are lacking that number 9 still. We've been missing it since Raul Jimenez had that bad injury. We've struggled, but I don't think a number 9 is as essential as the majority of the fan base think, because we're so well drilled in the way that we play football. If Wangi Chan is fit, then I'd probably think that Tomador would probably be out that starting lineup, and then you've got like a 5-2-3 with Neto and Sarabia on the wings, and then Channy just basically just being a nuisance to your centre halves. It's going to be a tough game. We've got to be at it. You've got to be at it, like you've already mentioned.
Should be a bit like this.
There's some real quality players on show there. There's no sort of what I'd class as world-class marquee players, but there's players there that could go on to reach that level with a bit more consistency and staying injury-free. I wasn't a massive fan of Anthony Gordon. I think he's been sensational the last 18 months. And I've been teasing you for a while, Pete. I'm saying Bruno Guimaraes is going to Real Madrid. I think he's got the capacity to go there or similar in the coming years.
Definitely, yeah. I think Isak as well. I know Dan Potts talks about Isak going to Arsenal. I think if he can stay fit, I think he can be our catalyst to really take us forward and be a really key player for the team. But I've just changed the team slightly, Dan, because you said if Hwang's fit, be Sarabia and Neto on the sides. Would it look a little bit like this if he is fit?
Yeah, I'd probably swap Sarabia and Neto because, like I said earlier, if we can get Pedro Neto running at Kieran Trippier, as good as he is set pieces wise and the experience that he's brought to Newcastle since joining, he ain't got the legs to cope with Pedro Neto over 90 minutes on the counter.
No, it's be interesting to see how it works out. Any last thoughts, Chris?
The only thing I'd add is, interestingly, and maybe this is something we can keep an eye on, if that's what Gary O'Neill does, I'd like to see Eddie Howe switch the fullbacks. Whether we'll see him do that, I don't know, but we know Kieran Trippier is comfortable on the left-hand side, so it'd be quite interesting if all game they just kept swapping to keep him away from Pedro Neto, because Tino Livramento, as we know, he's a quick lad. And being honest, I would rather see Tino Livramento up against Neto than I would Kieran Trippier, because I agree with what Dan's saying. Pedro Neto, if he can get a couple of yards on you, it's done. Like, he's not going to catch him because he's that quick and he's skillful. And Pedro Neto looks to try and hit you and get him behind. And if he gets that couple of yards of space, knocks the ball past Trippier, it's done. So, anyone watching who likes a bet, it could be worth having Kieran Trippier to get a card as well. Because I think there could be a couple of occasions where he's got to pull him or take him out or whatever. Just
give me a bit of insight into Newcastle for a second, because I see a little bit on social media, but there does seem to be a lot of clamour for Lewis Hall getting more minutes than what he's been getting.
It's an interesting one, and people in the chat tonight have been suggesting that as well. And to be fair, he hasn't really played a lot of football. I think there's a fair bit to it, and um, Chris, correct me if I'm wrong. I think there's a lot of things that are being said that have not been confirmed that I think may well come out in the wash once Dan Ashworth has officially left the club, because I think, from my perspective, it seems very much now that it was a Dan Ashworth signing. And it seems that Eddie Howe was willing to give him an opportunity, but then he hasn't done what Eddie Howe wanted him to do. So, for example, he wasn't playing to begin with at the beginning of the season, Dan, and then he was given the starting role, sort of like left wing, but then with Target getting injured at Old Trafford in the Carabao Cup. Target got injured pretty much like after like 2 minutes, tore his hamstring, and is only just back in training now, by the way. And then Lewis Hall went to left back. He was then sensational that game and scored, and we won 3-0 off the back of that. We thought that was it. And we talked about this the other week, Chris, is that we thought that was the catalyst then, that he was going to get more minutes. And he did start to get more minutes. He got a start in the Champions League away at Dortmund and then got pulled at half-time because he gave away a needless free kick on the counter and got a booking for it. Something that a more experienced player probably wouldn't have done. They would have just kind of marshaled him away. But he went in full throttle, and I don't think Eddie Howe was happy about that. And honestly, since that day, and we're going back to maybe like November time now, since that point, he hasn't really kicked a ball in anger for Newcastle United since. So there's a lot of talk about, why are we even signing him? Eddie Howe keeps saying in his press conferences, and he keeps getting asked by journalists what's going on with Lewis Hall. And he's saying, he's closer to that trigger of that £28 million clause, which is in his contract. It was a loan with a view to buy. We don't know what the clause is that triggers the 28 million. But we know, watching him last season for Chelsea, he only played a handful of games, but he played the majority of his games against like Man City, Man United, and I think
Liverpool.
It was another top team in Liverpool. Yeah. So he only plays games against top teams. He played against us as well twice, and he was really good in all of them. So he's got potential, and he's only 19. It's a really difficult one, Dan, and nobody can really put their finger on why or what has happened for him to not play, because he's in every squad.
Yeah,
he's training every day. He's available. He's just not getting minutes, and it's a really weird one. It is, like, Chris, like, you're in the same boat, aren't you, with Lewis Hall, mate?
Yeah, I think you've summed it up really well, Pete. I mean, this is the thing, Dan. We genuinely don't know. And you'll have seen there from the tactics board, he's not even a suggestion, because we know he's not going to start Lewis Hall, which sounds odd, because obviously when we brought him in, he's talented lad, as Pete says, he come with a good reputation. When you're agreeing for, an option to sign someone for 30 million who's 19 years old, who's also got Newcastle United links in his family, you think it's like a match made in heaven, and for some reason it's just not been. And Eddie Howe was, whether it's, as Pete's alluded to, whether he was a Dan Ashworth signing and Eddie Howe's not been happy with him, whether or not some people are saying that because of the clauses in the contract, Newcastle have found a loophole, and if we don't play him so much, the fee gets dramatically reduced. I mean, we've been going through an injury crisis, as you know, for the last few months, and it's like Eddie Howe's doing everything he possibly can not to play Lewis Hall. We've seen him just constantly play the same players week in, week out, and you can see how tired they are. And Lewis Hall can actually play centre midfield. He did play half a game for us, didn't he, Pete, against Man City? I think he played half the game at centre midfield. Yeah. So we know he could do it. And obviously, he's fresh legged. He's only a young lad, but he still refused to put him on the pitch. Now, whether that's because Eddie Howe doesn't rate him, whether that's because of his attitude behind the scenes, whether it's because of his contract, who knows? But it'll be interesting to see what happens in the summer with Lewis Hall, because something isn't quite right. I mean, he's been here now for many months, and he still looks no further on than some of the other players who are getting opportunities. Like, we brought back a player on loan in January called Joe White, who'd been out on loan to, I think it was a League One side, and he was on the bench, and he came on ahead of Lewis Hall, and we're going, what has Lewis Hall got to do to get some minutes?
Yeah.
What's he got to do? So that kind of tells you that's either Eddie's opinion of him, or the club have gone, right, we don't want him in the summer, don't play him anymore, and he can go back to Chelsea. Or there's that really, that outside chance that it is contractual, and if he plays under a certain amount, then we save 4, 5, 10, whatever million, and then we'll have him in the summer and be like, right, we've just saved a good chunk of money on him because we've not played him, but we've still got him. Maybe it's, if he's going to start so many games, it automatically triggers the higher end of the deal. Who knows? We're all just speculating at the moment, but to answer your question, Dan, we don't know. We don't know.
Yeah, it sounds similar to the situation we had with Ryan Aitnoy when he first came in. He might just be purely down to a trust issue at the end of the day, or maybe fitness, who knows, but there's definitely a player there.
Oh, yeah, 1,000,000%.
100%. And this is the weird thing, is it like we were buzzing to get him. And we were buzzing to get him because we've seen him play against us and we've seen his capabilities. And we saw the absolute fume from Chelsea, who didn't want to let him go. And as well as we do, when you're fuming that a player's leaving, you're letting a good player go. And you're getting a good player, or a player certainly with potential. And with Lewis Hall, as Chris has talked about and what we mentioned, he can play left back, he can play left wing, he can play centre mid. And he is the perfect type of versatile player that Eddie Howe wants. But it's just a really weird situation that, like I say, until Dan Ashworth leaves, we don't quite know the truth, and we probably won't get the truth, and it'll probably come out after Dan Ashworth leaves the club as a little bit more clarity. But it's gonna be a really interesting one from a tactical point of view, how that's going to go about. And we've talked a lot about how both Wolves and Newcastle are going to work out. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out on Saturday, for sure. But look, we've got a few questions for you, Dan, that we'll go through in just a second. But as we always do on when we're looking at matches and match day stats, there's only one man for the job.
Good evening, lads.
I like
Magic.
I love seeing you, Keith. It's the highlight of my year. Along with Pete and Chris's avatars in their pictures, I love coming on this channel. It's got everything. Chris was so positive earlier. I thought he's beyond positive to think he looks like that avatar.
I didn't create it.
If I have an avatar, I'm having the old Twitter egg next to me.
Oh my god! To be fair, Chris, you were buzzing when Daz put that together.
I was like, sound, yeah. He's like rewound about 20 years.
I thought Pete was like Sebastian Bassong and you were supposed to be Anthony Gordon or something.
I'll take Bassong.
Yeah,
I'll take Bassong.
He's got great teeth in that picture, Bassong has.
I don't think my Teggers are too bad.
Is that not Lewis Hall in the top right-hand corner, is it not?
Oh, yeah, maybe on the old Lewis Hall. But look, Keith, it's been a while. It's great to have you back, fella. I hope you're well. Hope all things are good. What stats have you got for us this week, mate?
Yeah, I hope everybody's well. Everybody in the chat are well. Got a few stats here. Newcastle Wolves, the all-time records, played 106 games, won 34, drawn 30, but surprisingly lost 42. So the overall record head-to-head, Wolves have got the better record historically. Newcastle have also only won 4 of the last 17 Premier League games against Wolves, with 4 wins, 11 draws, and 2 defeats. Quite a lot of draws there. Newcastle have got a better goal scoring advantage in the Premier League in the fixture, scoring 24 goals to Wolves 19. Newcastle have also got the slightly better defensive record with 1 clean sheet in this fixture, while Wolves are yet to have a clean sheet in this fixture. Quite a lot of goals in these fixtures between both clubs in the Premier League. Moving on to players, Huang Hee-chan and Mateus Cunha are the top goal scorers for Wolves this season with 11 goals each. And Pablo Sarabia, his goal against Sheffield United was Wolves' 40th goal of the season in that 26th league game, and the Premier, and that is the quickest that they have hit 40 goals in a top flight season since going back to 1971-72 season when they did so in the 23rd game. So Wolves, compared to last season, are on fire in front of goal. Goalkeepers, Martin Dubravka, he's got 2 clean sheets in 12 league games for Newcastle this season. And Jose Sarr, he's got 4 clean sheets in 24 games for Wolves. And Eddie Howe, moving on to the managers, his managerial record against Wolves, he's managed 10 games, 4 wins, 3 draws, and 3 defeats. And Gary O'Neill, he's undefeated in games that he's managed against Newcastle United. Both games he managed against Newcastle at Bournemouth last year ended in a draw, and the reverse fixture against Newcastle at Molineux, that also ended in a draw as well. Some general stats to round off. In Newcastle's last league game against Arsenal, they failed to have a single shot in the first half in the match. And that's the first time that they've failed to do so in the opening 45 minutes of a Premier League game since March 2014. And that was against Southampton at the time. And the match against Arsenal was also the 4th time that Newcastle have conceded 4 or more goals in a Premier League game this season. Only in 21-22, and that was 6 games, have they done so in more different games across the league season. So, unfortunately, Newcastle again look like they're going to the bad old days of pre-takeover there with their current form. Whilst Wolves, they've now won as many Premier League games this season after 26 games with 11 wins, playing as they've managed in the full Premier League season last year. So they've matched that tally of wins already against what they achieved for the full Premier League season last year. So they're playing really well. And they've as touched on earlier, they've only reached 11 wins quicker in the Premier League season on 2 previous seasons, 2018, 2019, under Nuno Espirito Santo, after 25 games, and in the 21-22 season after 23 games. And that's the stats for this evening.
Very good. Interesting.
Thank you, mate.
Good stats all round. Some good stats for Wolves, some stats for Newcastle there. It's going to be an interesting one. That is for sure. But Dan, I wanted to ask you a question. And it's related to our manager, Eddie Howe. Lots of murmurs, particularly the turn of the year, about Eddie Howe's position at the club from small sections of Newcastle fans. Every time we sort of get a bad result, it seems to be getting louder and louder. Do you think it's harsh on Eddie Howe that his managerial position is being questioned, or do you believe that Newcastle should be looking at moving him on because of the season that we've had? What are your thoughts about that from an outside perspective?
I think it's the classic football fan just always wanting a shiny new foreign manager who's got all the credibility in the world, but none within the Premier League to come in their club. I think he's earned the right, based on what he did with you guys last season, where he took you from, the season with previously. You can't knock him. He's done a fantastic job. I think inevitably we'd all be naive if we didn't think your owners didn't have bigger ambitions than Eddie Howe. But as long as he keeps you competitive every season, like we've already mentioned your injuries this season, maybe that'll give him some credit in the bank. It's all who's going to be available to take over from Eddie Howe for me. Do you want to go down the sort of the Mourinho route? I don't know whether you do nowadays. It's who's available. Who can the owners entice to come to Newcastle? Obviously, they've got the money, but can they sell the project to one of the bigger managers that can move it to that next level? I know some guys at your end probably might take Rafa back. I don't think that's the route for you guys. So I think you could possibly get better if your owners have got the ambitions. I think they've got. I'm still really not a massive fan of Eddie Howe, but what he's done at Newcastle, you can't knock him. And yeah, let's just hope it's not your last Christmas, eh?
Well, if it was in your position, so for example, if this was your situation, and like you say, for example, an Eddie Howe like type manager, or if this was Gary O'Neill, for example, and Gary O'Neill had done the same thing for you guys at Wolves, and you're in this position where you've had a lot of injuries, Champions League, you were going through this difficult period, would you be calling for Eddie Howe's head at this point?
I can't say I genuinely couldn't hypothetically think that was a possibility at Wolves because of the ownership difference. It's your owners have come with this massive war chest, talks of massive aspirations. I couldn't put myself in that sort of in those shoes really. I think, like I said, we all want to be champions of Europe back to back in 3 seasons, don't we? There's no reasoning anymore or common sense when it comes to football fans and achieving when you're competing against the likes of Man City, Liverpool with their backing and the players they've already got at their disposal. I think it's so difficult to compete nowadays. Financial fair play was supposed to be brought in to make it an even playing field, and I think it's made it worse.
Yeah, I think we all agree with that. That's for sure.
Yeah.
What questions have we got, Chris? I think there's a few questions in the chat. Some, quite a few for Dan, and a few maybe around the table.
Yeah, it certainly is, mate. So first of all, I just want to say a big shout out to Mike Gent. How time flies when we're having fun. Loads of mags. Member for 26 months. So thank you very much for your support, mate. Absolutely fantastic, mate. Great to have you part of the channel and a loads of ultra. Right. Yeah, do you know, it's a good one from Tom Dixon. Tom Dixon asks you, Dan, do you think Wolves have a good chance to compete with the top 6 in a few years' time? Or do you think you can do it now?
Well, like I said, I might be being over optimistic. I still think Man United are there to be caught to 6. It does seem that our owners aren't as proactive as they once were. That they do have regular comments coming out at the end of the season, start of season, little social media articles that they put out saying they want the club to be self-sufficient, and I think we need to go back to the model of, you know, bringing in players with good pedigree and then selling him on. We got lucky with Ruben Neves in the end. That Saudi came in for him because I think we would have been in financial fair play trouble without that signing in the summer leaving. Same with Matheus Nunes to Man City. But we've talked about players like Jota before. I think Jota was 18 million. We sold him for 45. Pedro Neto, I think he was around the 12 million pound mark. If we get 80 million pound for him, that's good profit margin, isn't it? It's frustrating. You don't want to see your best players sold. No. But I've already mentioned earlier, we're still really lacking in squad depth. If that 80 million brings you 3 to 4 top quality players, then we might have to change the way we set up, because obviously Neto is huge to us on the counter and whatnot, but you need a squad over a 38-game season to properly compete for those European places.
You've only got to look at West Ham with Declan Rice. They got 105 million from him, and he was their catalyst. He was their main man, their captain, everything. But look at what they've been able to do. That with Kudus, with the likes of Alvarez, you know, many more as well, other players that they've brought in. And they've been able to build this Ward-Prowse, yeah, exactly. And they've been able to build a squad off the back of that. And they've probably still got some change to put towards the summer window as well this summer. So, you know, like you said, that squad is going to be able to be built off the back of that for sure. It's an interesting one. But I just wanted to ask you a little sub question to that, because you talked about Ruben Neves, and obviously we've had loads of chats about Ruben Neves, all the rest of it. Like, when we were speaking in the January window last year, in the build up to last summer, I think you and we were both expecting him to go to like a top European team. Are you not pissed off as a Wolves fan that he ended up going to Saudi and not that top team that you expected?
No, I was absolutely fucking buzzing, Pete.
Money.
Honestly,
not happy to lose him, but sometimes you don't mind them going when they're going to a top team and then moving on to making the next step.
He'd been at Wolves for 5 fantastic years. The last year wasn't great. We finished, I think it was 13th in the end, but he was still captain for that last season. So yeah, 6 fantastic years. He stayed longer than I ever envisaged. I think I would have understood it if he'd left in the summer. We got promoted because on that back of that championship season, he was probably one of the best players the championship's ever seen. And yeah, that would have been a season we probably would have got big money profit on him for what we paid for. I think it was 15 million. But we had very many chats. You were coaxing me in Twitter DMs, in WhatsApp groups, saying he was joining Newcastle, and just seeing him play for another Premier League side would have really hurt. But there was inevitability, and I think me personally, I wanted to see him move to a bigger club because I think his career would be slightly not worthless, but he would have been a proper underachiever if he'd spent longer at Wolves in his career, because he deserves to be played at a high level. The fact that he's gone to Saudi Arabia's frustrating from a football career point of view, but when his contract ends in I think it's 2 years time from now, he'll still be 29. He was never really the most mobile midfielder. He wasn't like sort of Kante for being, running around the pitch endlessly. Yeah. I still think he could play for a top side for the passing range that he's got. So hopefully he'll come back to a European side in two years' time when his contract ends, because he's talked about the reason why he went to Saudi was to, look after his family for generations on, and that contract will. But if he has got the football career aspirations that I think he as a man wants, I think he'll end up coming back to Europe in 2 years' time.
Maybe come back to Wolves on a free?
But possibly he might end up at flipping Premier League winners 2026-27 Newcastle, who knows? But I just wouldn't want to see him join Arsenal. That's the only team I really wouldn't want to see him join.
I haven't spoken to you over the last week, mate. I didn't realise how much of a not so much of a fan you are of Arsenal. You are desperate for them not to win anything.
It's literally got to the point where I'd happily have Liverpool win the title over Arsenal, and I know I'm in a minority there. I know, Chris, but those Arsenal fan. Ever since I think it was 2 seasons ago now 2 seasons ago under Bruno Lage. We were basically, I think I might have been on like your Race to Europe show, Pete.
Yeah.
And we had a bit of a run-in with Arsenal at the time. We lost to Arsenal twice in the space of like 3 weeks. They beat us 1-0 at Molineux, and they celebrated like they won the league that year. I think they ended up finishing 5th in the end. And we got beat at Arsenal 2-1 with a fluky like last-minute winner. And I've heard Arsenal fans talk about it's the loudest they've heard the Emirates in years. But the way that they talked about Wolves and that run up, because I think that the couple of seasons before that, we finished 7th and they finished 8th. So as far as I'm concerned, after during that period of time, forget about history, it's similar to like Newcastle now. I think we're sort of rivals in this current predicament of league table position and the ability that we've got between the sides. But the way that Arsenal talked about little Wolves, I'll never forgive them for that. And the fact that they had Aaron Ramsdale in goal, who's a notorious West Brom fan. Honestly, I hate Aaron Ramsdale, and I've not got much fondness for Arsenal either. Sorry, I've got to have a rant.
Mate, I love it.
I love Dan Potts. If Dan Potts is watching this, I absolutely love Dan Potts. He's literally one of the minority of that fan base, so I genuinely like. The rest can just go take a hike as far as I'm concerned.
It reminds me, Pete, of us, of our rivalry with Villa. It just come out of nowhere. And then, like, us and Villa hated each other, didn't we? And now, like, there's still a bit of frostiness.
I was speaking to a Villa fan before the show earlier, and they said that they've got an irrational hatred for Newcastle. I was like, well, where's that come from?
It's also come
Sob on the
from,
time.
they're sob on the time. When effectively
That was
they
it.
relegated us in 2000 and 2009, like that was it. Like they just hated us ever since. And the reason why the hatred grew is because they never thought they'd get relegated, and then they did. And then they got relegated. So when we were both in the championship together, they were like, "Oh, we've got Champions League winner Roberto Di Matteo. We're going to get back up." All the rest of it, we was like, "Oh, okay, fair enough. Like, we'll see how we do." We end up getting promoted as champions. They don't get promoted. They stay in the championship for God knows how long, and
Couple of
just the hatred
seasons.
grew. Yeah, the hatred just grew after that, and then we get our ownership. They don't like it, and then all of a sudden they get Unai Emery. So then that creates hatred because Unai Emery was close to signing for Newcastle before Eddie Howe took over. It's just there's so many like crossovers off the back of it. But like, to be fair, like I didn't like Villa last season. Like I was quite vocal on that, but I haven't really got an issue with them. Like I don't mind the fact that they're up there. Like Billy, for example, on Race for Europe is a top guy, and you can't not like him. He's a really respectful guy. Rich Sutherland as well, who lives in Newcastle, interestingly, but is a Villa fan. They're both great guys. So like they help me feel better about the Villa situation. And of course, we won at Villa Park not too long ago. So
it's a funny one. The Villa Newcastle one's a funny one because it's intense with some fans of both clubs, but not with others. Like I remember reading some comments when the club hadn't been taken over by yet, the takeover hadn't gone through yet. And I was reading comments of sympathy from like Villa fans, generally sympathy, and I'm thinking, I thought you guys hated us, do you know? You know? So it's really bizarre. But my favorite rivalry that came from nothing really it's one where there isn't a direct geographical link. Is the Palace Brighton one, because you've got 40, 50 miles between them, and it started in but you think of all the derbies that are around Crystal Palace, but then none of them mean anything, but to them in consequential terms, the Brighton game's the big game on the South Coast, and it all started with, I don't know, a cup tie that went wrong in the late 70s, and a manager getting coffee thrown at him, and it just blew up from there, really.
Let's not get on to
Don't get me started on Crystal Palace, Pete.
I knew that's why I was saying it, because I knew you would get it would get you going, especially if we talk about Palace and D. Jesus Christ. That is an interesting conversation. But a couple of other questions before we get predictions and wrap up.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. So Lisa asked Little Dan, sorry, Little Dan, I don't know what this refers to, but hopefully you do. She says, will you be joining Manny on the next walk he does?
I'm probably going to say no. Lisa is doing an absolutely outstanding expedition for charity this week on behalf of Dementia UK. I'm you know me, guys. I'm 5'3". Walking up them stairs at the away end, the 140 steps is a Kilimanjaro vibe for me. Never mind what man is doing. I think it's 450 plus miles. He's walking from Molineux to St James's Park on Saturday. So I'm sure there's a link out there for you to help donate towards Manny, because it's outstanding. He walked Molineux to Stamford Bridge last season, and he's doing Molineux to St James's Park on Saturday. So good luck to him. I think he's probably around the Huddersfield Hills area at the moment, I believe. So yeah. I don't think saying congratulations is a thing to say, but yeah, he's mad. Just lowering a bath of beans, like he said today, probably would have been easier. But yeah, I'll donate. But walking from, like I said, walking that away ends enough for me. Never mind Wolverhampton to Newcastle.
We'll definitely get the link there as well. I know the Newcastle United Supporters Trust Twitter app, or X is what it's called now. I know Lisa will get the link out, and we'll give it a retweet, because Lisa will be there meeting Manny when he arrives at St James's Park on Saturday.
Just head to Alan Shearer's Twitter page. I saw he retweeted it earlier, so it's easy to find.
Yeah, definitely.
Brilliant.
But great work there by Manny and the crew, and obviously Newcastle United Supporters Trust and Lisa in particular is really supported with that in terms of getting that up and running. So that's it's great stuff, and it's great to have two clubs and establishments working together to create something really for a great cause as well. That's for sure. So yeah, brilliant stuff there. Any others before we
I've got to ask Dan this question because I know very little about him, and when he mentioned him before, his eyes lit up. So I need to know a little bit more. So Foxy asks you, Dan, what's your opinion, or what's the opinion from the fans on João Gomez? He does something Newcastle are massively missing at the moment, which is breaking up the play in the top 3 for tackles made this season in the Premier League, and even scoring key goals. Like I don't know much about João Gomez, but you mentioned about him being a pit bull. What are we likely to see on Saturday if he plays?
Just outright utter relentlessness. Honestly, he just not. He like you talk about a footballer being called the pit bull, and you think, bloody, that's a bit of a silly nickname for a footballer. But he literally just not give anything up. It's like a dog with a bone. He does not. That football on the pitch is his, and he doesn't like it being in your player's possession. Honestly, for such a young lad who's moved to a new country, I don't think he'd ever played outside of Brazil. He'd only scored 1 career goal before he moved to Wolves. I think he scored 3 for us in total. He scored 2 against Tottenham the other week. He only scored once last season. He started adding that to his game now. I've talked about Mario Lemina being like he's next to him in the spine. He's so important to the way that we play. And for a team like Wolves that will predominantly play on the counter-attack, he's so key at winning the ball back in good areas to launch us on the counter.
Maybe we'll be talking about the crossover. We've had Ruben Neves, we've had Neto talk. Maybe Gomez is the next one.
Did you not just hear Pete's stats? We're just bigger than you in every aspect. How there was a debate that Sunderland are bigger than Wolves, I don't know. Never mind Newcastle.
How much did you pay for them, Dan?
I think it was 18 million.
Oh, was it? Yeah.
So I'm talking about these. This is the model that hopefully, if we can get it right, of buying players on with good pedigree at low value to then sell them on for big value in a few years' time, because it massively helps with financial fair play. But I already mentioned you don't really want to be selling your best players. But if we can somehow get ourselves into the Conference League, it helps a little to try and keep these players here for a bit longer, and then hopefully with a bit of backing, we can push on the season after.
Yeah, definitely. No, there's definitely one I'll be keeping an eye on at the weekends. We're going back to rivalries. Apologies for this, little Dan. So this could be a tough question, or it could be an easy one. I don't know. But Geordie Toon for Life asks you, if you've got to choose one: West Brom to win the Champions League or Coventry to win the league and cup double. Which do you pick?
Coventry can win the league and cup double for the rest of eternity. I'd rather West Brom just went completely out of business. I was hoping they were going to go out of business, but they had their takeover confirmed yesterday. There's not I don't like using the word hatred, but there's literally, I've got no time for them. It's horrible. If we had to play West Brom in a league campaign, if someone said to me, we'll give you 2 0-0 draws and you just don't play the games, I'd take it every season, because Derby days is horrible. We've not got a great record against them. We beat them in the FA Cup this season. It's probably one of the greatest days of my life.
That's when their fans are fighting with each other.
They embarrass themselves. They're a poxy club, dirty club, just an embarrassment to the football pyramid.
Little Dan had a video. You had the video from the away end, didn't you? Yeah. Stop embarrassing yourself.
Yeah.
Talking to the West Brom.
Yeah, it was a good day. But so I say I don't know how to put it into words. The elation of beating them is like 10 out of 10. But the days when you lose to them, it can ruin your whole year.
We know that feeling with Sunderland.
Yeah, definitely.
We've had more heavier defeats against them. I know, like, was it 4-1 Sunderland won the one year at your place? We got beat 5-1. We lost to them 3-0 in the FA Cup at Molineux. That because of the FA Cup, like minimum attendance, we had to give them our main stand behind the goal to cover the attendance. Like one of the worst days ever. The 5-1 defeat at home. I was in a stag do in Dublin, and I paid extra money to get an earlier flight home from that stag do. We got beat 5-1. So you can imagine that Dublin hangover,
mate.
and then losing 5-1 to local rivals. It's beyond sickening. Sorry.
Oh man,
That's terrible.
I'd have got a flight back out.
Yeah, gone straight back out.
I was hoping to jump into the next propeller. Never mind, fly out. Thankfully, they're in the championship now, and I'm not had to see them. But let's see how this new takeover of theirs goes.
Definitely.
Well, I've got two more quick ones for you, Dan. We won't dwell on it too much, but he wants to, Stu Amos wants to know, what are your thoughts on Castore? Are you as unhappy as we've been with Castore?
Great question.
It hasn't been a good spell. I've not really been overly impressed with the kits that they've created for us. The quality hasn't been overly great. There were rumours that our owners had to sort of take on the kit creation because they weren't able to cope with the demand. So our owners in China had to sort of subcontract it to Chinese kit makers in obviously over there because Castore didn't have the demand because of obviously the players that we had, Raul Jimenez, Wang Yi-chan. These two types of players have got so much marketing in their nations that Castore just weren't able to cope with it on a UK and abroad basis. So Fos and our owners had to subcontract that process out. It's not been great. I think we had an issue with like the players, like it had like a bit of a wet look to it when they first started playing in the pre-season. It hasn't been good. I know Castore have been doing a lot of teams kits having the race, like the England cricket team and whatnot. I'm not overly fussed either way of them. I think the Adidas kits were pretty poor for what you're basically paying for an Adidas logo, weren't you? But it was all just printed logos. I'd rather have like a local company that do like proper embroidered kits than the cheap print stuff you get nowadays.
Yeah. But we've moved on from next season to Adidas. I think for a number of reasons that you said, they've not been good at all. We've had lots and lots of problems, very similar problems to yourself. I think most Newcastle United fans are absolutely buzzing. To all the Newcastle fans, should I say, can't wait for this season to be done for many a reason, but certainly for Castore to move on and Adidas to come in. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, definitely. And then the last question for you, Dan, is against Stu Amos. Who will win one of the 4 major trophies first, Newcastle or Wolves, in your opinion?
I think if you were a betting man, you'd say Wolves purely because we've got Coventry in the quarterfinals. I think we've got a better chance. That's all I can say. I think it's like I said, it's a lottery, isn't it? When you're competing against the likes of Man City and Liverpool at the moment, it's tough to get your hands. It's tough to get to a final. I know you guys did it with the Carabao Cup last season. You fell a little bit short there. It is going to be difficult. I'm always going to back my team. You look at the major honours list, lads, and you've got to back Wolves, haven't you?
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, what I give.
As long as Albion don't win it before one of us, I don't care.
That's true.
Well, agree on that.
Because I wouldn't have an issue with Wolves winning something as long as we were not too far behind.
You guys can go and crack on and win trophies as far as I'm concerned. I want someone to upset the apple cart that Man City and Liverpool have built in recent years. And no one's ever won the Premier League 4 times. You've got to be backing Man City to win the title this season. I think Liverpool are going to win it. I've just got a feeling. But betting against Man City would be stupid because they're an absolute juggernaut in this like business era of the business end of the season, aren't they?
But as I said it earlier on the show to you, Dan, is that you've been up there with us, like in that top half, and certainly we're only 2 points off a 7th place and not too far behind Man United, as you said. But I haven't got an issue with that. I just don't want Chelsea to get another European spot. I want to keep that big 6 as separate and as spread out as possible, because it allows us and other teams like yourself to be able to get in there and cause an issue. Because the more that happens over the next few seasons, you can't then start talking about them as the big six because they're not.
Yeah.
Because they're not doing it. Yeah, financially, they will be talked about that for a few more years, but at some point that will start to change. And the quicker that changes, the better it is for football. Is that they start releasing their stranglehold on the Premier League, and there's teams like ourselves and yourselves and Villa have been doing it, Brighton have been doing it. The more we do that, the better it is for football for me, and it gives other teams an opportunity to really kind of kick in.
Yeah.
But that's for another day. But I think that might be it for questions, is it?
It is. It is.
But as Christian just put on the screen, Lisa said, "Thank you so much." You know what, Dan?
You can say it, Peter. Now.
No,
I know. I'm a great guest, I know.
You are. You are.
You are.
You knew what I was going to say. You know what? I always, and I know Chris and Keith are the same. I always enjoy coming on and just chatting to you. We could have gone on for another half an hour,
Yeah, I was just
about
thinking
various different things. It's just so easy. Great chat, super knowledge, mate. Look, plug your channel. Where can people find you? Let's get subscribed to Wolves Fancast. Talk to us, mate.
Yeah, Wolves Fancast. We've been going since 2007 before podcasts were even a thing, really. You can find me at Sherpa Van Dan. I'm trying to get my followers up this year. I haven't got anywhere near enough as much as I want. So yeah, follow me there. And like Pete's mentioned, at Wolves Fancast. Yeah, we're just a loving Wolves community. We're nowhere near as good as you guys and building here. It's one of the easiest channels I always come on, and the community's always bang on. I never see any toxicity or animosity I find in other areas on social media. So yeah, thanks for having me on.
Nah, spot on, mate. Great chat and a great guy. And after, of course, we want to win on Saturday, but after that, I hope we're both up there playing European football next season. That's for sure. But just before we go, I need to see and hear those predictions. So, of course, I'm going to go for a Newcastle win. I'm going to say it's going to be a tight one again. I'm going to go Newcastle 2-1 personally. Chris, what are you thinking, mate, prediction wise?
I've got to back us to keep a clean sheet. I've got to. Desperate need of a clean sheet, in my opinion. So yeah, I'm going to say Newcastle 2-0. And I think Alexander Isak's definitely going to be on the goal on the score sheet. So I'm going to say 2-0 Newcastle. Yeah, that's my prediction.
Little Dan, Wolves fan, what are you going for? Are you going to the game?
No, I'm not there on Saturday. It's a long story, guys. Don't want to get into it. It's embarrassing.
No.
I'd usually sit on the fence. I'd usually be pulling splinters out, but I think it might go similar to the Tottenham away game that we had recently. I'm going to go 2-1 Wolves.
Thought you might. Yeah.
I don't think you're going to. I mean, I'm probably jinxing now. This is the viral moment. I don't think you're going to keep a clean sheet on Saturday, Chris. It's just whoever's the most clinical in the final third. I think I back Wolves. That's been one of the biggest things that I've enjoyed about watching Wolves this season. That there's been games where we've fallen short, but we've still always scored goals. I mean, Keith mentioned about how many goals we scored this season. The last 2, 3, 4 seasons, we've just been known as a team that hasn't scored enough goals. I think we finished on, I think it's maybe like 29 or 31 goals last 2 seasons. And the value for money that we were getting was really, really low. We were stopping teams scoring. We weren't scoring. We were literally the most boring team in the league to watch, in my eyes. But now we're a team that always looks to score or creates enough chances to have competed during 90 minutes. And that's why I think it'll be 2-1 on Saturday.
Fair play. After that win at Tottenham, I'm not surprised at all that you go for the Wolves win. But the main man, Double O Stato, what we going for? Are we on the fence? Are we going to go for a little bit of doom, or are we going to go for the positivity? What are you thinking this week?
I see 2 different outcomes for this one. Not playing well, Newcastle, especially bizarrely at St. James's Park. I haven't won at St. James's Park this year since before Christmas. You think that this time last year you'd have a start like that, but It's true. They're conceding too many goals. I think they're missing Joe Linton as well. I think missing Joe Linton too much. Somebody who can break up that play. Playing too much at the back. So for me, unfortunately,
Desmond
He's gone for the
Tom Cordy.
I think it's, yeah, absolutely. I can see that outcome as well. I can see a 2-1 to Wolves as well, especially the way they've been playing against the likes of Blackburn and that in recent games. I want to be proved wrong. I want to see Newcastle go on a great run to the end of the season.
Yeah. No,
It'll be a tough game.
Yeah, it will be. I think it'll be a really entertaining game. I think this game on Saturday could be one where the TV, whether it's Sky or TNT, will regret not having it on, because I think it'll be a game that people will certainly be watching back. It wouldn't even surprise me if it's game of the day for whatever reason. But it's two teams battling it out for Europe. It's going to be an interesting one. That is for sure. Everyone in the chat, thank you for staying with us. Thank you for your great comments, chat, and opinions in the chat. Even if we don't put them on the screen, doesn't mean we don't appreciate them. There's some great conversations going on, and as little Dan said, the community at Loaded Mag NUFC is absolutely fantastic, and we appreciate you all. That is for sure. We will be back on Sunday with the Newcastle United match reaction, win, lose or draw. We will be on there for sure. Give a massive shout out to our new partnership with Manscaped. Back in business with Manscaped. We are further details will come out with regards to that new partnership, but look out for that as well. And of course, get us on our socials. So make sure you support Dan and the Wolves Fancast, but also support us on our socials as well. We're on X as always, Instagram, TikTok, lots of different videos that we're putting out on some of those socials. So check out all the socials. Come and follow us on all of them so you can see all the content that goes out. We put different content out on different socials so you can get to see a different element and different style of what Loaded Mag NUFC is all about. Just before we go, big shout out to Russ and our sponsors at the radiatorshed.com. Thank you for your massive support of the channel, and looking forward to seeing you at the end of March. Check out some of the things that he's got on offer, and of course our other sponsor, Bathroom Designs H2O. Thank you for your support as well. Give a shout out to Geordie Jordan and the Geordie Journos, Newcastle World. Scan the QR code, get involved as the little dad is getting himself in the picture there. And as well, we had a new membership for the next, I think, 26 months or so. Tonight, click that blue button on your laptop and become a Loaded Ultra. Come and join the team. Like I said, we've got a great community. Come and support us and all things Loaded Mag NUFC. Don't forget to click the like button as you go out. And if you're new to the channel, subscribe to us. We've had lots of new subscribers in the last week. Come and join us as we make the race for 7K. That is for sure. That's it, people. We are out of here. Big thanks to Dan as well. I'm sure we'll be in touch over the weekend. Keith, Stato, 00 Stato, legend. Great to have you back. And I'm sure we'll be seeing you in the days and weeks to come. And Chris, spot on as always, legend, top man. We do love playing away. Take us home, Chris.
Dan, how'd you like that?
Guys, thanks for having me on. Take care of yourselves.
Legend.
How you like?
Still on. Not going anywhere.